Before we begin, some rules. No fossil or legendary Pokemon, and any regional forms must be from the region they originally appeared in. I am also only going to be going over 6 Pokemon to be my ideal team, because if I try remembering all of the Pokemon that I've used on my teams across the games I've played, I'm never going to get this mini-series done. Okay, so I was born at the tail end of the 90s, so even though I'm technically a 90s kid, I never ended up playing the Kanto games until my older brother got an emulator and a bunch of games off of the internet. And even then, the first game I played was Gold, not Red, Blue, or Yellow. I'm also not particularly fond of the original RBY because they are so slow. And the Fire Red, Leaf Green ROMs that I had were bugged so they wouldn't save properly. All this means is that the first time I played a Kanto game that wasn't a bad experience for me was the Let's Go games. So that, understandably, has affected my team selection. My starter would be Eevee, nicknamed either Eve or Evan, depending on if it were a boy or a girl. This is because Eevee is one of the starters of the Let's Go games and has been in my top 10 favorites for some time. Dragonair, nicknamed either Kai or Kaida, would be my resident dragon type. Dragonair and not Dragonite because while Dragonite is arguably stronger and is at times cute, Dragonair is a much more logical and regal follow-up to Dratini, plus there's the episode The Legend of Mini Ryu. Lapras, nicknamed Nessie, is the water type of my team because I love this little cutie in the anime, and of all the water types that could be my surfing Pokemon, I would want it to be this one. Ninetales, nicknamed either Naruto or Naruko, is the resident fire type because I'm a sucker for Japanese mythology and I love the Ninetales from the Mystery Dungeon games. Sue me. Marowak, nicknamed either Oliver or Olive, is here because of the Cubone from the Pokemon Origins series and the one in the Let's Go games. I don't care who you are, that was tear-inducing. And rounding out my team is the designated flyer, Pidgeot, nicknamed either Tegatus or Yazinia. Partly because of the HM thing and me liking Pidgeot's design more than Fearo's, but mostly because I've used this Pokemon so much that I've just developed an attachment to it. It was also my first shiny in Let's Go. Pokemon Gold was the first Pokemon game I ever played, so there's some nostalgia there. I also really enjoyed HGSS and played it non-stop for weeks after I got it. So most of the Pokemon in this lineup are going to be purely based on sentimentality. And you know what? I don't care. My starter is Typhlosion, nicknamed either Terror or Panic. This bad boy just so happens to be my very first starter ever, and as such is the one that is staying on my Johto team no matter what. Crobat is our flyer here, and is nicknamed either Bartok or Bathsheba. This is because I'm not a big fan of any of the other flying types in Johto, and Crobat is just such a great Pokemon. Plus there's the fact that it evolves through friendship, so that helps bolster my attachment to it. Next up is Togetic, who is named Hope. And yes, I am aware that this is also a flying type, but it's like the size of a person's head. It's not actually going to be flying anyone anywhere. There's also the fact that Togepi in the anime is the cutest little bundle of joy, and the fact that you get it as an egg from Professor Elm. If you think I'm leaving this little guy behind, you're dreaming. Next up is Umbreon, named either Tsukuyomi or Luna. Partly because it has the cooler shiny, but mostly because when I was playing through Gold for the first time, this is the friendship evolution I got after getting the gift Eevee from Bill. They then went on to be on my team when taking on the Elite Four, so yeah, they're not going anywhere. Sneasel is a Pokemon I was never able to get in Gold when I was playing through it because I couldn't find it, but I really wanted one. Partly because it looks so cool, and partly because Silver has one, and I thought having a whole Sneasel rivalry thing going would make for a very cool little headcanon side story. They would be named either Peacemaker or Patricia. And rounding out our team is big old hard-hitting tanky Azumarill. This little walking tank would be named either Mist or Misty. Ruby was the second ROM I played, and it was all in Japanese. I am not joking. I had to go to my brother and tell him that the Ruby game he downloaded was in the wrong language. That was a fun afternoon. On top of that, Hoenn also holds the honor of being the original region of my second favorite Pokemon, which I will reveal when we get to it. I should also mention that Pokemon contests were a big part of my enjoyment in the Hoenn games, so that's going to affect the Pokemon I picked. My starter is Blaziken. This is because I'd already started watching the Hoenn season of the anime before playing this game, and Ash hadn't gotten Trico yet, so Torchic was the only starter I'd seen in the anime at that point. But the little guy is so flipping cute, I still think I would have picked him anyway. Their name would be Blitz. Next up is Gardevoir, nicknamed Guardian. This is due to a combination of factors, including Wally's Gardevoir, the Gardevoir from the Mystery Dungeon games, and me just plain liking the design. Next up is Altaria, named Blue. This little sweetie is here partly because of the anime, but mostly because I remember winning the Master Rank Cute contest with it in my first playthrough of Ruby, and then again in Oras. Milotic is up next, and their name is Prism. This is the first Pokemon I got by hacking. No, not in the legit games, but in the ROMs, because have you read how you were supposed to catch this thing in the Gen 3 games? It's already a ROM. I'm not affecting anyone else's game. I say hacking the game to get a flipping feedback is perfectly fair. After that, I got my Milotic the hard way and swept the beauty contest with it. I then did the same in Oras without needing to cheat. Next we have my second favorite Pokemon, Absol, nicknamed Compassion. I've come to realize that I tend to have a bit of a soft spot for Pokemon that get bad raps in their Pokedex entries, especially if they have really sympathetic showings in the anime or other corners of the franchise, such as the Mystery Dungeon games. And rounding out the roster, we have Banette, nicknamed either Koyama or Hanabusa. Like I said with Absol, I have a soft spot for Pokemon that get bad raps in their Pokedex entries, and I'm clearly not the only one that thinks this little guy gets ragged on too much, as there are a lot of comics and other fanworks out there showing this little guy getting the love he needs. I mean, have you seen the comic of a lost Banette meeting a Phantump that's the spirit of its old owner that got lost while trying to find it? Heck! My heart! Pokemon Diamond is the proud holder of the title of first Pokemon game I owned legitimately. It is also the home to my favorite Pokemon, Darkrai. However, as they are a mythical, they are sadly exempt from the running to be on my team. First up, we have Infernape, who is nicknamed either Mowgli or Shanti. I think my actual first starter in this region was Torterra, but that was before I watched the Sinnoh anime and saw how woefully abysmal Sinnoh's fire-type catalog is, especially in Diamond and Pearl. So yeah, this little fire monkey is my baby now and none of you can take him. Next up is Luxray, who is named either Takumi or Arika. This little beauty was the first Pokemon I caught in my first ever playthrough of Diamond, so already it has the sentimental attachment going for it. But it's also just such a good design! An electric big cat? I snuggle! If you've watched my short on my Johto team, you really should have seen this one coming. Next up we have Lucario, nicknamed either Luke or Aura. Just like Togepi from Johto, I got super attached to this scrappy little jackal pup, and they were a mainstay on my team right through the Elite Four. Next up we have the flyer Togekiss, again nicknamed Hope. While I didn't get to use this guy in my original game Diamond, I did later get Platinum, and with it the Togepi you get is an egg from Cynthia. You know, that's actually a really effective strategy to get me attached to a Pokemon. Give it to me as an egg. Next up we have Leafeon, nicknamed Foliage. I like both of the new evolutions in this gen, but because of how late it is before you can evolve Eevee into Glaceon, I've never actually been able to use it in a Sinnoh playthrough, so Leafeon gets the spot. And finishing up the roster is Gallade, nicknamed Usagi. This guy is so flipping cool. I already liked him and used him whenever I could, but after Oras and Legends Arceus, I love him even more now. Fun fact, this guy is the first alpha Pokemon I ever caught. Okay, I'm gonna be honest. This is the point where I stopped watching the anime, so the regions from here on out are going to have little to nothing to do with it. Basically, all of the entries from here on are going to be based on my own experiences raising them in the games and their appearances in spin-off games and the manga, but not the anime. First up, we have my starter, Superior, nicknamed Fern. To be honest, Snivy was the only one of the three that really jumped out at me. I hadn't started reading the black and white manga yet, so I didn't have any predisposition to Tepig. And even if I did, I think I still would have gone with Snivy because I distinctly remember somehow being spoiled on the final evolutions of the starters, and I just did not like Embor's design. Next up we have Zoroark, nicknamed Illusion. This is one of the rare occasions of it being partly because of the anime, because this one made an appearance in a Sinnoh movie. However, what really cemented their place on the team was the Zoroark you got in Black and White 2 that had once belonged to N. That just really hit me in the heart. Next up is Chandelure, nicknamed Candle. This guy is mostly here because he looks cool and he was a main on my team in both sets of Unova games. This guy was a major powerhouse on my team. Though that may have been partly because when I was playing these games I was a teenager and the only one I knew who played them, so I would often use my brother's action replay to get trade evolutions. And if I was already using a cheating device anyway, might as well give myself all the items too. So I probably had Chandelure a lot sooner than I should have. The rare candies probably helped too. Next up is Braviary, nicknamed Hawk. I did not like the early root bird at all, so when I found this fluffy little cutie pie of a baby bird, I was like, yes please! And for it to then evolve into a colourful eagle? Heck yes! Next up is Volcarona, nicknamed Lav or Lavan. I remember the first time I found this guy as a Larvesta in the desert ruins. I was so surprised to see this fluffy little caterpillar just hiding away in some ancient ruins like a legendary. So naturally I had to catch it. And when it evolved into Volcarona, I knew that this sun moth was staying on my team. No question. And finishing up the team, we have Reuniclus, nicknamed Lauren. And just like Chandelure, this guy is simply here because he was a staple on my original team, and one of my rules is that the Pokemon has to originate from the region I'm talking about. That's not to say I don't like him, I just don't have any interesting stories to tell. Like I said last time, I stopped watching the anime when Unova happened, so I have no idea what happens in the Kalos anime. I don't even have the manga to go off here because I only got the XY manga recently. Heck, I can't even really go off of the game all that much because I stopped paying attention halfway through. So this is probably going to be a boring one. First up is my starter, Greninja, nicknamed either Fredo or Gabby. This guy was always going to be my starter. A ninja frog? That is so cool. And while I've never watched the Kalos anime, I am aware of the existence of Ash Greninja and had the gift one you got from the Sun and Moon demo. Can you say OP? The flyer of my team is Talonflame, nicknamed Sparrow. Not only is this a really cool bird Pokemon, but it's a 2-for-1 deal for breeders. With this being the gen that I started getting into breeding and shiny hunting thanks to getting a Masuda Ditto, Talonflame was the best bird. Next up is Pangoro, nicknamed Ryuzaki. The moment I saw this guy as a cute little Pancham, my brain instantly thought of the nickname and I went, you are coming with me. Yes, this guy got on my team because of an anime reference. Next up is Sylveon, nicknamed Ping or Ribbon. There are very few of my teams that don't have an evolution on it. And with X and Y being the first games where you can catch Eevee in the wild, heck yeah, I'm taking the new evolution with me. Next up is Aegislash, nicknamed Excalibur or Caliburn. I was never really able to figure out how to strategically use the form-changing ability, but that doesn't mean this Ghost Sword wasn't a major player on my team. He took down Diantha's Gardevoir for Pete's sake. And finishing up the team, we have Trevenant, nicknamed Quaken. As I've said before, I have a soft spot for Pokemon with sad stories attached to them. They make me want to hug them and give them all the love. So, the spirit of a child that got lost in the woods like the Skull Kid from Legend of Zelda? Mine! Pokemon Sun and Moon are the games that usurped the rank of favourite gen from Gen 2. Sun and Moon specifically because I have made my feelings about the Ultra games very clear in my video rewriting various Pokemon games. My starter is Decidueye, nicknamed Shroud or Elise. Initially, I was planning on choosing Litten because it was a kitty with my favourite starter type. But then I saw the final evolution and noped right out of there. Decidueye looks amazing, with the little leaf hood and the wings looking like a cloak and using its wing as a bow and its feathers as arrows. It all works so well. Incineroar? What is with those proportions? Next up we have the goodest of boys, Dusk Lycanroc, nicknamed Dusky. For my first playthrough of Alola, I had a Dayform Lycanroc because I hadn't watched the I Choose You movie, nor did I know that Lycanroc's type didn't change between the forms. So I thought that Midnight would be part dark and I already had a ghost on my team. But when I started the Ultra games, I got the special event Rockruff right away. He became my second Pokemon and I just got super attached to him. Next up is Alola Ninetales, nicknamed Haku. It is really rare that I find an ice type that I really like, especially when they usually show up really late in the game. But the moment I found out that Vulpix and Ninetales were going to get a white, fluffy Ice Fairy variant, I knew I had to have one. Next up is Silvally, nicknamed Ohana. Yes, you don't get this guy until the post-game, but come on! It's Gladion's signature Pokemon given to you by Gladion as a symbol of your friendship and everything that you did for his family. How can you not get instantly attached? Next up we have Mimikyu, nicknamed Q. I have said it once and I shall say it as many times as necessary. I have a soft spot for Pokemon with sad stories, and this little guy just pulls at my heart. And finishing up the team, we have Alola Raichu, nicknamed Seabolt. Cute? Check. Great typing? Check. Absolutely amazing reference? Double check. It is a Raichu surfing on its tail with blue eyes, just like a certain surfing Pikachu from the anime. Galar may have arguably the worst story in all of the Pokemon games and almost zero presence in the anime, but that doesn't mean the Pokemon aren't cool. And there are some I got very attached to. My starter is Inteleon, nicknamed either Bond or Tia. I knew I was going to pick this little guy the moment I saw the trailer for this gen, which, funnily enough, was the first trailer for a Pokemon game I'd ever watched, because Australia didn't have Pokemon ads running when I was little, and by the time they were on public TV, I wasn't watching it. I have YouTube now. But anyway, seeing this cute, timid little guy that was scared of everything, I just wanted to hug it. And then for it to become James freaking Bond? Next up is Corviknight, nicknamed Alan. Rookidee was my first Pokemon in Sword and Shield, and for it to become an awesome steel-flying raven, that is just such a highlight. Fun fact, ravens are one of my favorite birds. Next up is Toxtricity, nicknamed Minor. While you don't get Toxel as an egg in this game, you do still get it from someone at the daycare, so I say it still counts. Anyway, this guy saved my bacon many a time in my playthrough, thanks to it being a mad lad when it came to inflicting poison. Next up is Hatterene, nicknamed Raps. This witchy princess was so much fun to use in the game, and the design is very fun. I did also consider Galarian Rapidash, but because I never used it due to starting with Sword, I had to go with the one that I have actually used. Next up is Frostmoth, nicknamed Nah. Don't look at me like that. I was replaying Fire Emblem Awakening, alright? Anyways, the bug type is really getting some love recently. First with Volcarona, now with Frostmoth. Not only is this Pokemon a friendship evolution, so instant head start there, but it is so fluffy! And finishing up the team is Rapid Strike Urshifu. And before you all get up in arms about this guy being a legendary, he's not. I don't care what the internal data says, if every person that enters this dojo gets a Kubfu, it is not a legendary. He's a starter. The whole story of the Isle of Armor being about raising this little cutie and then deciding what to evolve him into? A+ emotional attachment. Now we come to the game that overthrew Alola as my favorite gen. Gen 9 Paldea. This really feels like Pokemon playing into their strengths of having several small stories rather than one big story. And the Pokemon? Chef's kiss, for the most part. My starter is Meowscarada, nicknamed Spring. I wasn't a big fan of any of the starter's final evolutions. Quackquavel is just very awkward and his feet look so weird. Skeledirge isn't bad, I'm just not a fan of crocodiles. Sprigatito is a cute little grass kitty, and while Meowscarada isn't what I'd been hoping for, it's still a lot better than the duck peacock. I just like my kitties cute and cuddly, and when you make a Pokemon a little too human-like, it makes cuddling them weird. Next up is Clodsire, nicknamed Eclair. This is one of the rare occasions of me going out of my way to catch a Pokemon to add it to my team as soon as possible. This overgrown chocolate bun of a Pokemon is so cute, with just a hint of disturbing, and I love it. Next up is Ceruledge, nicknamed Proto. I started with Violet for 2 reasons, the box legendary and Ceruledge. I love Ceruledge's design, it's sleek and I just love the colours. Armarouge is cool too, but I don't know, it just didn't catch my attention the same way Ceruledge did. Next up is Houndstone, nicknamed Baskerville. Like always, the Pokemon with the creepy but tragic story gets on my team. But also, did you see the Greymon dancing on the speaker during Rhyme's battle? Yeah, that is so cute! Next up is Pawmot, nicknamed Pipor. Yes, that is a pun. While evolving it is a pain and a half, it is still really cute and did take down quite a few tough Pokemon. Also, its paws remind me of Iron Man. And finishing up the team is Garganacl, nicknamed Nuzlocke. This is a very clever line. The name of the first stage being the chemical formula for table salt, and it being really cute. This big guy was the tank of my team and allowed me to heal up my party in a pinch many times.